The black cells were made to take a man apart in pieces too small to gather again. They did not need blades for it. Darkness did as well. Silence. The steady drip of water that told him time was passing while his own body, cramped upon cold stone, seemed to have forgotten the meaning of motion. Lord Eddard Stark had learned in that pit that honor, if shut away long enough from sky and wind, could begin to taste like folly. He lay with his back against sweating rock and listened to the scrape of tiny claws. Once he would have counted the sounds to keep his wits. Now he let them come and go. He had thought often of Winterfell as starving men dreamed of feasts. Not of its hall, not of its banners, not even of its hot bread and smoking meats, but of the yard at dawn, when the frost had not yet given up the stones and the breath of the horses made pale clouds in the air. He thought of Bran laughing before the fall, of Rickon's small hand lost in his wolf's fur, of Robb trying to stand too straight beneath the weight of manhood, of Sansa's careful courtesies and Arya's stubborn Chindai. He thought of Cat, most of all, not as he had last seen her, stern and afraid, but younger, with river water running off her sleeves and anger bright in her eyes, because some northern boy had presumed to be solemn in her father's godswood. When the door opened, the light was so sudden that it stabbed him. Ned raised a hand against it and heard soft steps on the stair. "Do not fear," said a familiar voice, smooth as silk passing over a blade. Though in all truth, Lord Stark, fear is no bad companion in this place. Varys came hooded and plain, as he had come before, though even in coarse cloth he could not help but seem arranged. He held a lantern low, as if out of respect for the dark. Behind him stood a man hard as old bark, his beard gray, his black cloak patched and salt-stained. Yoren of the Night's Watch filled the narrow space with a smell of horse, leather, and the honest road. Ned pushed himself up on stiff arms. "If this is to urge me once more to confess," he said, his voice dry as dust, "save your breath. I would save something more valuable if I can." Varys studied him with pale, thoughtful eyes. "Her Grace the Queen meant to send you north. I believe that. She is cruel when afraid, yet she can count to the end of a sum. The boy cannot. Joffrey was born with a crown-shaped hole in his soul, and he means to fill it with spectacle." Ned said nothing. The name alone chilled him. Joffrey wanted him alive only so long as living Ned Stark bent his neck. A dead one, displayed in blood and sunlight, would teach a noisier lesson. "Sansa," he asked at last. "A hostage still?" Varys inclined his head. "Alive, valuable, miserable, which in King's Landing is almost the same as saying safe for the present." Arya slipped their fingers. "Yoren has had a hand in that." Yoren scratched at his beard and spat to one side. "The little one's got claws. I tucked her away as best I could. But if they kill you clean and proper at Baelor's Sept, they'll turn the city inside out for her next, and for any man foolish enough to help." Ned closed his eyes a moment. Arya alive. The knowledge was a knife of another kind, cutting hope through the numbness. "Sansa cannot be left." "Not forever," said Varys. "But this is a game of doors. One is open now. If you do not go through it, all others will shut. A noble death may satisfy your conscience, my lord, but it will not save your daughter. I have lied once already to save them, and found that liars may be outlied by greater fools," said Varys softly. "Live, Lord Stark. Your truth is worth more walking than rotting." Ned looked from the eunuchs to the crow. Yoren's face gave away nothing, but his hands were the hands of a man prepared to drag a sack of grain or a wounded lord with equal indifference to complaint. Ned thought of Robert dead, of the throne room, of Littlefinger's dagger at his throat, and the gold cloaks changing sides like reeds bending in a flood. He thought of the words he had spoken for mercy, and how little mercy had followed. "If I flee," he said, "they will call me traitor." "They call you that already," Yoren muttered. A bitter smile touched Ned's mouth, and was gone. He reached out, and Yoren put the black cloak in his hands. The wool was rough and smelled of horse and wood smoke. Not home, but north, perhaps. The passages beneath the Red Keep were narrower than a sober man ought ever to trust. Ned went half-bent through blind turns and cramped stairs, his shoulder against cold stone, the lantern hooded now, so that light pooled only at their feet. Here and there old mortar had split, and roots from the hill above had wormed down through the walls like gnarled fingers. Once they passed a chamber where pale skulls loomed in the dark, great jaws frozen open forever. Dragons, long dead and toothless, keeping no watch worth the name. Varys moved through that underworld as if he had been born to it. Perhaps he had. He touched walls, paused at turns, listened before each hidden door. Twice they crouched in silence while feet crossed overhead. Voices drifted down through stone in muffled fragments. Laughter and curses and one snatch of song so merry and foolish that Ned, for a moment, hated the singer more than he had ever hated a Lannister. They came at last to a narrow postern buried behind casks and worm-eaten crates in a forgotten cellar below the outer wall. Yoren eased it open. A blade of night air slid in across Ned's face. He had not known how starved he was for wind until then. Beyond lay a stable yard black with mud. 2 mules stood harnessed to a shabby wagon heaped with sacks. A pair of ragged boys slept beneath it, or feigned it. Somewhere farther off a dog barked, then another. The castle above them was a mountain of darkness pricked by torches. Varys put a hand upon Ned's sleeve. "Once you pass the gate, you will not return by any road of your own choosing," he said. "Remember that. Remember also that there are men in this city who prefer the realm unburned. Should word be able to reach you, it may. Why help me?" The question hung between them. Varys smiled with only one corner of his mouth. "Because children pay for the feasts of kings. Because Lord Tywin Lannister prefers order without justice and young Joffrey prefers neither. Because if you live, perhaps one honest man remains in the game. Choose the answer you find least offensive." Ned did not trust him. He doubted he ever would. Yet trust and necessity were different beasts, and tonight necessity had sunk its teeth in deep. "Ain't the wall," Ned said. "A man is meant to put aside the wars of the realm." "Then it is a strange thing," said Varys, "that the realm seems determined to follow you there." Yoren gave Ned a shove toward the wagon. "Up. Save your words for when the road's ours." They passed the mud gate just before dawn, one more miserable train of black brothers and rough recruits going north where King seldom looked. The guards were bored, sleepy, disinclined to search sacks of onions and old boots. One peered into the wagon and saw only a stooped brother with his face hidden in shadow. He smelled Yoren and the road, and that was enough. Outside the walls, the city spread behind them in a confusion of roofs and towers, the Red Keep rising above it all like a clot of blood upon the hill. Ned turned once in the wagon bed and looked back. Somewhere in that tangle of stone and smoke, his daughter slept uneasily in a bed not her own, with enemies for servants and flatterers for companions. Somewhere in those streets, another daughter hid with a needle-thin blade and a wolf's temper. He could not go to them. He could only ride. The first light was coming when the bells began. Not the measured bells of prayer. Alarm. Ill. Yoren did not turn. He snapped the reins and the mules lurched into a faster, uglier trot. "They found the hole," he said. Ned drew the black cloak tighter around himself and listened as the bells rolled over the waking fields, each peal a hammer striking at the shape of the life he had lost. He had entered King's Landing as Robert's hand. He fled it as a hunted man in borrowed black, with no sword, no office, and no certainty save this. The axe had missed him once. The realm would not be so clumsy again. They kept off the King's Road when they could, following hedgerows, cart ruts, and lanes so narrow that brambles reached into the wagon to clutch at woolen skin. Yoren preferred ugly roads. Ugly roads were seldom crowded, and men with warrants liked easy riding. Twice in the first day they lay hidden beneath willow boughs, while mounted riders cantered past on the far rise, crimson cloaks flashing beneath the pale sun. Ned remained bent and silent, as Yoren had instructed. A brother of the Watch who had taken a vow of silence drew less notice than a lord who had vanished from a black cell. He sat among sacks and rough-faced boys, his bones aching from the ride, and watched the little company with the sharpened attention that comes to men denied the right to act. There was a thick-shouldered smith's apprentice with black hair cropped short and a bull's neck, a hot-eyed baker's boy who muttered in his sleep, a long-limbed child with ears too large for his head, and one small, dirty boy who kept his cap low, spoke little, and looked at every field and wood as if searching them for some private enemy. At noon, Yoren called a halt in a stand of alder by a narrow brook. The recruits set about their bread and onions. Ned had just stooped to cup water in his hands when he felt eyes on him. He turned. The dirty boy was staring in a way no stranger would have dared. The mouth was set too stubbornly, the eyes too gray. The child glanced once toward Yoren, then slipped behind the wagon. Ned followed, his heart beginning to beat so hard that it made him lightheaded. The boy pulled off the cap. Hair hacked short sprang out in dark tangles. Mud-streaked cheeks too thin and a face too familiar. Arya looked up at him with fierce relief and wounded anger all at once, and for a moment he saw not the child she had been in Winterfell, but the shape of the woman she might become if the world did not kill her first. "Father," she whispered. The word broke him more cleanly than the black cells had managed. Ned went to one knee in the leaves and caught her in his arms. She was smaller than he remembered and harder too, all bone and stubbornness and a smell of road dirt, horse, and smoke. She clung to him with desperate strength, then pushed back to look at his face. "I knew it was you," she said, as if daring him to deny it. "Yoren said I mustn't say. He said if I said, men might hear." He was right. Ned touched her hacked hair. "You should never have seen this city. I hate it." Her mouth trembled. Arya bit it hard until the weakness was gone. "Syrio told me what to do. I watered, danced, and ran." "Did he?" Ned could not lie to her. Not now. Not after all the lies that had brought them here. "I do not know," he said. Her eyes shone, but she would not cry. Arya had inherited more of the North than courtesy ever would have taught her. "Sansa, still in the Queen's keeping." Arya's face changed at once, grief giving way to fury. "Then we should go back and die at the gate. To get her." He put both hands on her shoulders. "To save one child by losing two is no rescue. She'd never leave me." "No," Ned said softly. "She would not." That, more than anything, made the ache in him deepen. Sansa would have gone back for Arya with all of the courage of a child who still believed stories ended well for the good. Yoren's bootsteps rustled in the leaves behind them. "Time," he said, but not unkindly. "You can be father and daughter when you've 20 leagues at your back instead of 2. Arya looked mutinous. "I'm Arya." "So you are?" said Ned. "And Arya will obey Yoren, or I'll tan Arya from one end to other when we're safe enough that he can afford it." A quick spark lit her face at that, half outrage, half delight. It vanished almost at once, but it had been there. For the first time since Robert's death, Ned felt something like warmth move through the frozen chambers of his chest. They rode on. The second night brought rain, a cold, slanting misery that soaked cloaks and turned every hollow in the road to brown soup. They crowded into a crumbling shed while Yoren cursed the weather and the south together. The boys huddled close. Arya slept with one hand tucked under her patched jerkin, where Needle lay hidden. Ned saw the slight bulge, saw too the way the black-haired apprentice, Gendry, Yoren had called him, watched her with puzzled suspicion. The smith's boy knew a thing or two about noble bearing, whether he understood why or not. By dawn, the rain had passed, leaving a low mist over the fields. They were breaking their fast with stale bread when hoofbeats came sudden and fast from the east. "Under the cart," Yoren hissed to the younger boys. "Now." He drew steel in one smooth motion. Ned had no sword. Yoren tossed him a cudgel hardly fit to beat laundry, but Ned took it. A man did not choose his weapon when hunted. 3 riders burst through the mist in crimson cloaks, the lion badge dark with wet. Their horses were lathered, their tempers already sour. "You there?" called the foremost, peering at the little party. "By order of King Joffrey, all travelers are to be searched. A traitor fled the city." Yoren spat. "I've got thieves, rapers, and one boy fool enough to piss in his boots when thunder comes. If your traitor is among them, he's taken a hard turn." The rider laughed. Another dismounted and came striding forward, too eager. He kicked at a sack, shoved aside a boy, and reached for Arya's chin. She moved before Ned did, jerking back with a wolf snarl. "Saucy little bastard." The man grabbed again. Needle flashed out like quicksilver and pricked his palm. Not deep, but enough. Everything broke at once. Yoren roared and met the first rider as he came down, dragging him half from the saddle with a slash across the thigh. The second man cursed and backhanded Arya, sending her spinning. Ned came in with the cudgel, not elegant, not knightly, but fast enough to crack it against the man's wrist. Bone gave. The soldier howled. Horses screamed. The third rider wheeled away to make space for a charge, and Gendry, big as an ox and twice as angry, seized a fallen spear from the mud and drove its butt into the horse's face. Beast and rider toppled together. It lasted heartbeats only. Yoren killed one where he knelt. Gendry and the others fell on another with stones and sticks. The third, the one Ned had crippled at the wrist, staggered up and fled, limping through the mist. Yoren started after him, then checked himself. "Let him run," he said. "He'll tell him there's wolves on the road. Good. Mayhap they'll imagine more than there are." Arya's lip was split. Ned touched it and she drew herself up, offended by concern. It was only a slap. A slap is enough. He was stupid. So are most dead men. That earned him a sideways glance almost worthy of Sansa, if Sansa had ever learned mischief rather than politeness. Arya wiped the blood from her mouth and tucked Needle away. They could not remain. By noon, the search would widen. Yoren led them westward then, abandoning the road entirely. They passed through apple orchards stripped by hungry men, across little streams where dead leaves circled in eddies, and once through the smoking shell of a holdfast whose banner had been torn down and trampled into the yard. The war had moved faster than news, as war often did. At dusk they reached a small sept where the Septon had fled, and only old women remained, too stiff or stubborn to leave the cracked idols behind. One of them had seen the bells from King's Landing from her field. "They say the Wolf Lord escaped in Demon's Black," she told Yoren, not knowing whom she spoke before. "They say the Queen's mad with it. They say the Boy King swore to have his head on the gates." "Boy Kings say many things," Yoren replied. That night, while the others slept, Ned sat wakeful under the broken gaze of painted saints. Arya lay nearby, curled around her stolen sword as if it were a doll from gentler days. He could not save Sansa tonight, could not strike Joffrey from his perch, could not take back the letters he had written or the trust he had misplaced, but he could still act. He borrowed ink from the Sept's abandoned chest and tore pages from a mold-stiff ledger. In the faint light, he wrote 3 letters. To Robb, commanding that he hold the Norse banners together and trust no man who smiled too easily. To Catelyn, alive and painfully brief. Arya safe with me. Sansa captive. I ride to you if I can. To Stannis Baratheon, stark and formal. Robert's children by Cersei are not his issue. I witnessed enough to stake my honor and my life upon it. If I live to stand before my banners again, I will speak the same before gods and men. He sealed them as best he could with wax from a chapel candle and the plain wolf ring he still wore upon a raw, thinner finger. At dawn, Yoren gave the letters to a one-eyed shepherd boy bound north. It was madness to trust so small a messenger with so much. Yet the realm had already proved madness more reliable than prudence. When they rode on, the sky was iron gray and low. Ned pulled his black hood close and kept his gaze on the road ahead. Behind them, King's Landing hunted a ghost. Before them lay war, daughters to save, banners to gather, and the impossible task of making truth matter after it had been beaten half to death in a dark cell. They came upon the northern outriders at dusk 3 days later. in a stretch of river meadow gone silver beneath the evening mist. Palace Mullen recognized Ned first, though he could scarcely credit his own eyes. The captain reined up so hard his horse tossed foam and stamped, then dropped from the saddle into the wet grass. "My lord," he said, and his voice broke on the word. Ned had no answer save to grip the man's shoulder. Behind Hallis flew the direwolf of stark gray upon white, darkening in the failing light. It struck him then with a force almost painful. He had been gone from his own men too long. Men were not trees. Leave them long enough without the weight that bent them, and some would grow crooked. Robb was camped before the twins with near 12,000 men, the banners of the north and the trident spread in ordered confusion across the muddy banks of the Green Fork. Fires pricked the dusk. Horses whickered. Men sharpened steel, mended bridles, cursed the phrase, prayed, drank, or bragged in low voices meant to hide fear from themselves. A host on the edge of battle had its own smell, richer than any stable and fouler than any kitchen. Leather, sweat, wet wool, dung, onions, damp ash, and that subtler scent underneath, the hot metal tang of men who expected blood. Word of Ned's coming outran him by half the camp. Men stopped what they were doing to stare. Some crossed themselves in the old way. Others shouted. One began to weep openly. By the time Ned dismounted before the central pavilion, Robb had already burst through the flap and was striding toward him in mail and boiled leather, his sword belt loose, his young face gone suddenly naked with disbelief. Father? Ned had seen Robb last as a son. He saw him now as a lord half made by necessity, sharpened before his season. The boy's shoulders were broader. The soft hesitation had gone from his mouth, but his eyes were still the same, gray and earnest and trying too hard not to show hurt. Robb. The distance between them vanished. Robb embraced him like a child for one heartbeat, and like a man the next, clapping his father's shoulders with awkward force, because he could not trust his hands to be gentle. Ned felt the tremor in him. Then Catelyn was there as well, with no grace left in her, only fierce relief. She caught Arya first and sobbed as if her heart had been laid open, then turned to Ned and struck his chest with both fists before clinging to him so tightly he could scarcely breathe. "You fool," she whispered against him. "You honorable, stubborn fool. I prayed for your life and cursed it too. Nani, and Anai, and Ashay. I deserve the cursing." "Yes." She drew back, hands on his face as if to assure herself he was not some shade called up by grief. "And the praying." Theon Greyjoy lingered a little apart, smiling crookedly, though unease moved in him like a fish beneath ice. "I always said it would take more than Lannisters to finish a Stark," he said. Robb laughed once, sharp with relief, and clapped him on the arm. Ned returned the smile faintly. He had taken Theon as hostage and raised him as near to son as justice allowed. Now, looking at the young man's bright confidence, he wondered what that confusing kind of mercy had made. Arya, still in her filthy boy's clothes, endured her mother's tears with heroic impatience until Catelyn tried to clean her face, at which point she wriggled away and hid behind Ned's cloak. That small motion, so absurdly familiar, steadied him more than all the banners around him. Inside the pavilion, the war waited on the table in the form of maps and markers. Catelyn told him at once what necessity required before tenderness could reclaim the hour. Riverrun was under siege by Jaime Lannister. Lord Hoster was dying. Lord Walder Frey held the crossing and wished payment for a bridge his ancestors had built with equal parts stone and avarice. "He has already named his price once," Catelyn said. "I bought the bridge with Robb's hand and Arya's future." Arya's head snapped up. "My future? You were not consulted," said Ned. "As is the custom when old men bargain with children. I don't want some Frey." Robb gave a short bark of laughter despite himself. "There's 100 of them, Arya. You might be more specific." Ned might have smiled at that on another day. Instead, he turned to the map and to the man in question. "Then we speak with Lord Walder together," he said. "And this time he bargains with the Lord whose word he means to bind." Walder Frey received them in a hall that smelled of rushes, old wine, and old resentment. He was wrapped in velvet and fur despite the mildness of the room, a yellow, shrunken thing upon a carved chair, but there was nothing shrunken in the greed of his eyes. Those moved over Ned at once, taking his measure, recalculating. "Come back from the grave, have you?" he croaked. "I don't like dealing with dead men. Their promises are so hard to collect." "I am alive enough to remember what is owed," said Ned. Walder cackled. "Hey, so says every lord when he wants a bridge. Then the war goes his way and suddenly his memory worsens." "No, Gemda. My memory has never failed me in a matter of honor." "No," said Walder Frey. "But your daughter's beauty might." Robb stiffened. Catelyn's hand closed over his wrist beneath the table before he could answer with the temper of 18. Ned did not look at his son. He kept his eyes on Walder. "The terms agreed remain," Ned said. "Robb shall wed a daughter of your house when the war is done. Arya, if the gods spare her to womanhood, shall be promised to Elmar, as Lady Catelyn agreed. 2 of your grandsons shall foster at Winterfell and be treated with all courtesy due their blood. In return, your bridge is opened this night, your men provision our crossing, and your levies march with us against the Lannisters." "No," Walder's mouth pinched. "And what surety have I?" Ned removed the direwolf clasp from his own cloak and set it on the table between them. Gray metal caught the firelight. "My word, which has so far cost me more dearly than most men's swords. If that does not suffice, nothing will." "No." There was a silence then, broken only by the crackle of logs on the hearth and the faint wash of the green fork beneath the tower. Walder liked profit, but he liked being courted nearly as much. To be offered the pledge of Eddard Stark himself, rather than a woman's necessity taken under duress, fed something old and vain in him. At last he sniffed. "You should have been born uglier. It would make mistrusting you easier. Very well. The bridge is yours." When they left the hall, Arya was muttering darkly about Elmars and old men. Robb fell into step beside Ned, restless as a hound before the hunt. "They would have named me king tonight if you had stayed dead," he said abruptly. Ned looked at him. "Who?" "Greatjon, Karstark. Some of the river lords too, after what the Lannisters did. They say the South has broken faith beyond mending. They say no son of Winterfell should bend the knee to a Baratheon or a lion. And what say you?" Robb was silent long enough that Ned heard the answer in the silence before it came. "I say Joffrey is no king of mine, nor mine." Ned rested a hand on his son's shoulder, felt the steel beneath the leather. "But law is not made truer because a villain sits a throne. Stannis is Robert's heir if what we know is known to the realm. If we break the kingdom because the kingdom has wronged us, we teach every grievance to call itself justice." Robb's jaw worked. "And if Stannis proves no friend to the north? Then we will know we chose honor first and necessity after, not the other way round." Above them, wind worried at the banners on the battlements. Somewhere across the yard, men were already leading horses toward the bridge, chain links clinking, harness leather creaking. War moved while lords argued. It was one of its ugliest virtues. They crossed before dawn under a sky as black as Yoren's cloak, the torches along the bridge mirrored in the dark river below, so that it seemed they rode between twin files of fire. Ned went over with the first column beside Robb, Catelyn, and the Greatjon, the planks thudding beneath hundreds of hooves. Ahead lay Jaime Lannister and Riverrun, Lord Hoster's deathbed, and the ruin of whatever peace had once seemed possible. Behind him, the twins dwindled into darkness. Before him, the riverlands opened like a wound. Plans looked clean upon maps. The ground cured them of that vanity. Ned divided the host with a caution Robb found constraining until the first reports of Jaime's foraging parties reached them, and proved the value of patience. Roose Bolton took the bulk of the foot to threaten Lord Tywin near the Green Fork, but not alone. Ned salted his command with men whose loyalties were plain, and whose pride would suffer no quiet treachery. Greatjon Umber rode with him. So did Helman Tallheart, and the grim sons of Rickard Karstark, who wanted Lannister blood dearly enough to keep sharp watch on any ally who seemed too cold in the wanting. Robb, Brynden Tully, and the flower of the Northern Horse slipped south and west beneath cloud and darkness toward Riverrun. Ned went with them. He would not sit safe while his son hunted a kingslayer through hostile woods. Catelyn argued against it for half an hour, and then ceased when she saw his face. She knew that look. It had sent him to the Tower of Joy and into Robert's Rebellion and south to King's Landing. She hated it. She loved it too. Such were the burdens of marriage to a man who mistook duty for the only road, and then somehow walked it straighter than other men walked desire. The Whispering Wood earned its name that night. Wind moved through the leaves in a ceaseless hush, like 1,000 people speaking secrets just beyond hearing. Robb's outriders had drawn Jaime on with tales of scattered Northmen and easy prey. Now the trap waited in cold silence among trunks black with damp. Men breathed through their noses. Horses stamped and were soothed. Somewhere, an owl called and was answered. Ned sat his horse beneath the trees and thought, briefly and with strange clarity, that he had once brought his daughters to the Godswood in Winterfell on autumn evenings when the leaves had sounded just so beneath the wind. The memory passed as quickly as it came. Then the first clatter of armor drifted through the dark. Jaime Lannister rode boldly, because boldness had served him all his life. He came beneath a lion banner held low among the branches, his guard fanned behind him in bright steel and scarlet cloaks dimmed by moonshadow. He was laughing at something a knight beside him had said when the first horn sounded from Robb's flank. The wood woke all at once. Arrows hissed. Horses screamed. Men shouted to one another, and to gods who had no time for them. Robb drove in from the left with gray wind at his side, the direwolf a pale blur between boles. Brynden struck from the right, river knights thundering over roots and ferns. Ned came through the center with a knot of Northmen, sword in hand now. Plain castle-forged steel taken from an armory at the Twins. Nothing like ice, but steel enough. Jaime did not break. For that alone, Ned understood why songs had been made of him. The Golden Knight cut his way toward Robb with savage purpose, his face alight in the madness of combat. He slew Daron Hornwood in the first rush, cut down Sir Wylas Manderly's horse, and then crashed into the Karstark line like a spear hurled by some enraged god. Torrhen and Eddard Stark died within sight of one another, red mouths open beneath the moon. Rickard Karstark's cry of grief and fury rang through the wood. He spurred forward. Ned caught his bridle hard enough to wrench horse and rider sideways. "No!" he shouted. "Alive, if he can be taken." "For my sons?" Karstark's face was wild. "For Sansa," Ned said. And that at last reached him. Robb was there an instant later, face spattered with mud and blood, sword rising to meet Jaime's. Their blades rang once, twice, 3 times in bright, murderous arcs. Jaime was stronger, Robb quicker. A horse shoved between them went down screaming, and Ned drove his own mount in before the opening closed. He slashed for Jaime's rein hand. Jaime twisted, cursing, and the cut took leather rather than flesh. Then gray wind was at the lion's horse, teeth closing on its throat. Beast and rider crashed together. The Kingslayer hit the ground hard enough to lose breath. Robb was on him first, boot planted on his sword wrist. Greyjohn's axe hooked the fallen blade away. Jaime rolled, reached for a dagger, and found Ned's sword at his neck. The battle went on around them in diminishing pockets of violence. In the little circle made by trampled ferns and frightened horses, all seemed suddenly still. "So," Jaime said, breathing hard. Mud streaked the gold from his hair. Blood ran from a cut at his temple into one green eye. But the smile that touched his mouth was as mocking as ever. The dead return in shabby armor. Is this what the North calls a miracle? "What the North calls a miracle," Ned said, "is seeing you dismounted." Jaime laughed, then winced. "You should have taken the black. You would have looked grimly heroic on a wall." "I meant to. And I meant to grow wings." Robb's chest was heaving. Ned could feel the boy's anger beside him like heat from a forge, sharp and young and aching for a clean blow to end an old wrong. Jaime saw it too and tilted his head. "Go on then," he said to Robb. Avenge your lord father, your sisters, your butcher's boy, if you like. There has been so much avenging done in my direction of late that one more would scarcely signify. Ned thought of Sansa in King's Landing, of Arya asleep in Riverrun with Needle under her pillow, of Catelyn's face when she had spoken their daughters' names as if each syllable might cut her. He lowered the sword a fraction. "Bind him," he said. Jaime's smile thinned. "Mercy? From Eddard Stark?" "Calculation," Ned answered. "Do not mistake one for the other." By dawn, Riverrun's siege lines were splintering. Jaime's camp, leaderless and struck from within and without, gave way in confusion when Edmure Tully sallied from the castle. Fires rose among the Lannister tents. Men threw down arms and ran for the river. Others died where they stood. War rewarded skill. It devoured order. The gates of Riverrun opened to them with trumpets and tears. Catelyn met her brother in the yard and clung to him as if one of them must otherwise vanish. Hoster Tully did not rise from his bed, but when Ned went to him in the dim chamber that smelled of sickness and rushes, the old lord knew him. "Dead," Hoster murmured, peering with clouded eyes. "Or half so. Neither yet." "Good." The old man drew a ragged breath. "The fish have had enough of funerals." Arya found the castle at once and made it her kingdom, despite her mother's efforts to confine her. Sansa's name came often to her lips and then not at all. Grief in children learned strange roots. Robb moved through halls and yards like a man older than the years in his face, hearing petitions, assigning watches, writing orders. More than once Ned stood unseen and watched him, feeling pride and sorrow braided too tightly to separate. He sent ravens from Riverrun before the blood had dried on the yardstones. One to every major lord who might yet care for law. One to White Harbor. One to the Vale, though Lysa was like as not to burn it unread. One to Dragonstone, though Stannis by then had likely seen the truth already in letters of his own. In each Ned wrote plainly, "Joffrey is not the son of Robert Baratheon. I bear witness with the honor of my house and my life, which the Lannisters sought to end for this same truth." The words looked strangely small once set down. Yet he had learned in King's Landing that truth whispered in halls was only rumor. Truth sealed and sent by Raven became a standard men could gather under or trample by choice. The answer from Dragonstone came swift as a winter hawk. Stannis rode without courtesy and without hesitation. He named Joffrey, Tommen, and Myrcella abominations born of incest between Cersei and Sir Jaime. He called himself the lawful king. He thanked Ned for surviving long enough to do his duty. Robb read the letter in silence. Catelyn read it twice. Brynden Tully snorted. Great John Umber spat into the rushes and said that lawful kings were all very well, so long as they killed lions with sufficient vigor. Ned folded the parchment and laid it on the table. Outside, the river moved past Riverrun's walls, as it had moved before Aegon's conquest, and would move after every crown in the realm had turned to rust. "The choice comes," he said, "and with it more war." No one contradicted him. They had all smelled it already on the wind. If Riverrun gave Ned back his family, it also gave him more claimants than comfort. The River Lords wanted vengeance. The Northmen wanted vengeance and honor, though not always in that order. Stannis Baratheon wanted obedience. Renly Baratheon wanted everything his charm could persuade the realm to hand him. Lord Tywin Lannister wanted time. Of the five, Ned trusted only the honesty of Tywin's ambition. Catelyn rode south beneath a peace banner because she asked to go, and because Ned, after one long bitter quarrel, let her. "You think only men can carry duty," she told him the night before her departure. As if marriage had ever been a soft office. She was right. She often was, when he least wished it. She found Renly first near Bitterbridge, amidst silk pavilions, bright shields, and laughing young lords who treated war as a tourney prolonged by inconvenience. The camp glimmered green and gold in the spring sun. Songs floated above the cook fires. Tyrell roses perfumed the air more richly than Prudence. Renly came to her in polished armor, antlered helm under one arm, and kissed her fingers as if court itself had not become a slaughterhouse. "Lady Stark," he said, smiling beautifully. When I heard your lord husband had cheated the block, I knew the gods still had a taste for drama. He escaped death. That is not the same as cheating it. Now that is a northern distinction. Renly led her beneath a striped awning where fruit and wine stood ready. And what message does honest Eddard send me? That I should set aside a crown because my brother's claim is better upon parchment? No, because his claim is better in law, Catelyn said. Renly's smile did not falter, but something cooler came into his eyes. Law? Yes. Stannis has always been very sound on law, sound enough to break his teeth on it. Will your lord husband bleed his son's host for a king who has never inspired love in any man? He would bleed them for a lawful realm rather than a convenient one. Convenient? Renly laughed. My dear lady, there is nothing convenient in seizing a throne. Only possible. Nay. The word stayed with her. Possible. So much wickedness in the world had first dressed itself as that. From Renly's soft abundance she rode to Stannis a harsher lines before Storm's End, where tents stood in strict order and men went quiet when she passed. There was little laughter there. Sea wind worried the fires. Salt sat white on cloaks. Stannis received her in a plain pavilion with maps, candles, and the woman in red who watched all things as if seeing their bones beneath the flesh. He had aged. Grief sat badly on him as if his face resented even the courtesy of showing it. Yet when Catelyn delivered Ned's words, Stannis listened like a man hearing confirmation of a judgment he had pronounced long before. Eddard Stark does his duty, he said. Late, but he does it. Late? Catelyn's temper rose despite prudence. My lord was imprisoned, beaten, forced to choose his daughters against his honor, and hunted through half the south. Stannis' mouth tightened. Then he knows something of duty after all. Melisandre stood by the brazier in red silk that made the candlelight seem pale. The wolves and the stag have business together, she said. Her voice was low and musical and set every hair on Catelyn's arms upright. Night gathers at the end of all your roads. Stannis did not rebuke her. That frightened Catelyn more than the words themselves. The brothers met at dawn beneath the walls of Storm's End with Catelyn as witness and Brienne of Tarth at Renly's shoulder. The day was clear and pitiless. The sea shone hard as hammered metal. Renly came splendid in green enamel and gold, looking every inch the king minstrels would choose if minstrels ruled. Stannis came in plain black and gold, looking like the judgment those same minstrels would rather sing around. Brother, Renly called lightly. You come for my homage at last? For your obedience, Stannis said. You are my younger brother and my subject. Renly's laugh rang against the old walls. Robert won the throne with his warhammer, not a family tree. The realm wants a king, not a lesson. It will have both. Catelyn watched their faces more than their words. She saw in Renly the same easy charm that had always made men step toward him without knowing why. She saw in Stannis the hard refusal to bend that made lesser men call him iron when they meant unlovable. Both thought themselves right. That was the trouble. If either had known he was wrong, peace might still have been possible. She returned from the parley with her heart heavy and her horse lathered. Brienne rode with her to Renly's pavilion after sunset, still talking in earnest, hopeful tones about one more attempt. One more meeting, one more chance for brothers to remember blood. Poor maid, Catelyn thought. She still believed men became wiser by speaking plainly. The shadow came with no sound. Later, Catelyn would remember only pieces. The candles sputtering though there was no wind. Renly turning from the mirror with surprise, just beginning to touch his handsome face. Brienne's shout. The darkness that moved like a blade given life. Then blood, and possibly much of it, flowering black-red across green silk. Renly died before he hit the floor. There are moments when the world changes its shape so quickly that the mind refuses to travel with it. Catelyn found herself grabbing Brienne's arm, hissing for her to flee. Men would come. One. They would see blood. They would see the maiden with a sword and the foreign lady by the corpse. and truth would not enter into it. They fled into a camp already waking to confusion, each man inventing his own explanation before the next had finished shouting his. Behind them, Renly's dream died hard and messy. Before them, the realm lurched onto a darker road. When the news reached Riverrun, Robb swore in disbelief. Edmure called it sorcery. Greatjon called it Southron business, and asked whether Stannis now had the larger army. Ned said nothing for a long while. He had seen strange things in war before. The Tower of Joy had cured him of believing all men died by common means. Yet, this was different. This had the flavor of something foul let loose by choice. "Will you still support him?" Robb asked at last. Ned looked at the letter Stannis had sent, at the careful, brutal truth of it. He thought of Joffrey on the Iron Throne, of Sansa in the city, of Tywin gathering strength, of law and the compromises men made with monsters when their enemies seemed worse. "I support the rightful heir," he said slowly. "That does not mean I must love the company he keeps." In King's Landing, word of Renly's death arrived on quicker wings than truth about how it had happened. Sansa heard it first from a serving woman with a taste for terror. By evening, the court was full of whispers. By morning, Joffrey was boasting that his uncle had died of fear at the thought of facing him. Cersei smiled as if all the realm's wickedness were simply weather that had chosen her side for once. Tyrion Lannister did not smile. He stood at a window in the Tower of the Hand, goblet forgotten in one hand, and listened to Varys tell him that Eddard Stark still lived. Jaime sat captive at Riverrun. Stannis would soon style himself king if he had not already, and Renly Baratheon was dead by means no sane man would name in daylight. "A dead Stark was trouble," Tyrion said at last. "A living one is a campaign, and one your sweet nephew has worsened," Varys murmured. "There are men who will die for a martyr, my lord. There are many more who will march for a lord they believe can still save them." "Nandi." Tyrion looked out across the city to where the great Sept dome caught the sun. Somewhere beyond it, Sansa Stark moved through her captivity like a candle carried by a child through a storm. Somewhere beyond the city walls, an honest man gathered banners against his house. "It seems," Tyrion said, "that we had best be very much cleverer than my sister." Varys bowed. "That, my lord, is usually sound policy." War turned months strange. Some days dragged like chains. Others vanished between one raven and the next. With Renly dead, his great host shattered into fear, ambition, and opportunity. Much of the storm Lord Strength bent at last to Stannis by right or terror. Much of the reach bent elsewhere, drawn by sweeter promises and the old gravity of wealth. Tywin Lannister moved as if every road in Westeros belonged to him by ancestral custom. Ned learned, as every commander did, that one never fought only the enemy one saw. Hunger fought beside them. Weather, pride. Rumor.I. Men's fathers dead 20 years. Men's sons unborn. At Riverrun, the councils ran late into the night. Robb argued for swift strikes westward to keep Tywin from joining the capital. Brynden Tully agreed. Edmure wanted to protect every fort and village in the Riverlands at once, which was to say none of them. Greatjon wanted battle, any battle, so long as it ended with singing. Roose Bolton, pale-eyed and soft-voiced, offered measured cruelties as if proposing the placement of cups at table. Ned listened and chose a harder middle road. Robb would ride west with picked horse and the Blackfish to harry Stafford Lannister's new levies before they could harden into an army. The river crossings would be held, but not at the cost of scattering every strength. Jaime remained alive and under heavy guard. Rickard Karstark glowered at that daily, yet obeyed, because Ned Stark still breathed and spoke with the old authority that grief alone had nearly cost him. One suggestion came from many mouths, and was shut down every time it rose. Send Theon Greyjoy to Pike, win Lord Balon to neutrality or alliance, spare the western coast from Ironborn raids. Theon himself smiled when the idea was first raised, showing white teeth. "My father might value a son returned in good order," he said, "even if he values little else." Ned studied him across the table. Your father values victory. Sending you back now would not buy his love, only his leverage. Theon's smile thinned. So I remain a hostage. You remain a ward of my house and a man I would not deliver into a father's hands while that father smells weakness in the realm. Ned's voice was even, but the words landed hard. If Balon Greyjoy rises, he will do so because he is Balon. Not because we were fool enough to hand him a knife named Son. For a moment, Theon's face stripped clean of swagger and showed naked hurt. Then the mask returned, lighter and crueler. As my lord commands. It was not gratitude. Ned did not ask it. Yet when winter later took the coasts in mist and rumor brought word that iron-born longships prowled the sunset sea but had not struck the heart of the north, he would think on that counsel and be grateful for suspicion. Robb's western ride was the making of him. He broke Stafford Lannister by night at Oxcross with a speed that turned green boys into fleeing men before dawn could teach them courage. Songs were already being made by the time the first prisoners reached Riverrun. But Robb did not linger in triumph or chase deeper than prudence allowed. Ned's letters reached him like cold hands on a hot brow. Win, return, do not be trapped by glory. So the young wolf came back blooded and praised, not entangled in some western castle where grief and gratitude might have seduced him into folly. Arya took to the river castle as she had taken to the road by refusing every part of it that wanted her still. She tormented the grooms, followed the guards, begged Sir Mark Piper to teach her dagger work, and once vanished into the kitchens for half a day, only to be discovered black with soot and triumphant over a pie she had helped bake. Catelyn despaired. Ned secretly thanked the gods for noise. A quiet area would have frightened him more. Yet even amidst the life of a castle saved, Sansa's absence hollowed every family meal. Her chair might as well have been a tomb. In King's Landing, Sansa learned to live by the small coin of hope, hoarded and spent carefully. The news of her father's escape had reached her in fragments first, then in undeniable truth when Joffrey, livid and petulant, had slapped her before half the court because wolves were not meant to wriggle free. That blow had done more good than harm. A king did not strike a girl in full view of men unless he feared what she represented. Cersei kept Sansa close after that. Too close. The queen would have preferred another hostage, less beautiful and less silent, but she understood value when it wore silk. Sansa was fed, dressed, watched, and from time to time frightened for sport. It was a gentler prison than the black cells and a more dangerous one for that. Beauty invited carelessness. Tyrion, newly made hand in all but name, took to speaking kindly to her when chance allowed. It cost him little, and gave him something to believe of himself. Once, after Joffrey had made her look upon heads on the city walls, he found her white-faced and perfectly straight-backed in a gallery overlooking the yard. "You are better at this than many men would be," he told her. "I do not wish to be good at it." "No," said Tyrion. "I imagine not." She looked at him then with the grave composure she had taught herself. "Will you help me?" Such simple words. Tyrion, who had lied with wit and argued with scholars and traded jests with whores and warriors alike, found himself at a loss before them. "I can keep you from some hurts," he said at last. "Not all. Then you are like every grown man I have ever known." The answer would have stung more if spoken in anger. Because it was spoken in sorrow, it stayed with him. The city itself was changing. Carts rumbled through the streets with casks bound for the Guild of Alchemists. Men who smelled of vinegar and smoke passed in and out of hidden doors. Varys brought reports in his soft, frightened-looking way, and Tyrion listened with growing dread. "Wildfire," he said. "Enough to burn the bay green. Or the city green, if it is mishandled," said Varys delicately. "Comforting." Varys spread his hands. "I thought it courteous to let you be uncomfortable before the fact, my lord." At Riverrun, a whisper reached Ned by a more crooked path. A fishwife from Maidenpool told a hedge knight that the king's men were hauling strange jars in secret. The hedge knight told a septon. The septon told a maester. The maester told a raven. In war, truth often traveled disguised as gossip. Ned read the note twice and then sent to Robb. "If Stannis attacks by water alone," he said, "King's Landing may burn half its own throat to stop him." "And if he attacks by land?" Robb asked. "He will still have the city before him, Tywin somewhere behind him, and perhaps the Reach in between." Ned rubbed at the old ache in his leg. If only the gods had made law a shield. Robb sat with that. He was growing used to truths that did not help. "What of Sansa?" he asked quietly. There it was again. The one wound no victory had closed. Ned looked down at the map and saw not roads or rivers, but a girl standing at a window she hated, trying to remember songs of a court that had never existed. "If chance opens a door," he said, "we take it. If not, we make one." He did not say how. He did not know. That was the worst of command. Men expected answers where often there were only directions toward pain. The answer, when it came, would not wear the face he expected. The Battle of the Blackwater began in smoke and ended in stories no singer could wholly tame. On the river, Davos Seaworth stood at the prow of his ship and squinted through morning haze at the city he had smuggled into and out of all his life. King's Landing rose ahead in towers, walls, and the faint glimmer of sun on spear points. Behind him came Stannis' fleet, rank upon rank, oars churning brown water white. The banners of the crowned stag streamed in the wind. Men crossed themselves, gripped blades, muttered prayers to gods old and new. Davos prayed to none. He had seen too much of men's gods set against one another to trust which listened. He had carried with him one unease not born of battle. A raven from Riverrun had found Dragonstone days before, bearing Eddard Stark's warning in the plain style of an honest man. "Beware the alchemists. Beware the river." It was too late then to alter all. Too late perhaps even to know what altering would mean. Stannis wanted the city taken swiftly, before the Lion and the Rose could close upon him from west and south. A king in motion was not easily turned by cautions from another proud man far away. So Davos went forward with dread in his belly and duty in his bones. In the Red Keep, Sansa heard the battle before she saw any part of it. Horns, bells, the low thunder of men on walls, servants running, the strange, thrilling, terrible roar that rose from a city when every alley and rooftop became a listening mouth. Joffrey swaggered through it at first, armored in gilded steel, calling for arrows and wine in equal measure. He brought Sansa to the battlements long enough to delight in her fear and show her ships on the river like dark leaves borne on a current. "There," he said, pointing. "Your father's precious lawful king. I'll have his head too." Sansa looked where he pointed and saw only smoke and sails and the glint of sun on water. She thought of Stannis Baratheon not at all. She thought of her father, of Robb, of Arya with mud on her face and defiance in her eyes. Somewhere in the world they lived. It seemed impossible that they could share the same sky with this cruelty, and yet be real. By afternoon, the city smelled wrong. Not merely of siege, pitch, sweat, fear, horse dung, and hot metal, but something sharper beneath it, bitter and oily and unnatural. Even the air seemed to flinch from it. Cersei gathered the women in Maegor's holdfast as the sound of fighting swelled. She wore black velvet and rubies, as if in mourning for everyone but herself, and drank steadily. Around her ladies prayed, whimpered, argued, or sat frozen with their hands folded too tightly in their laps. Sansa remained standing because standing felt like choice. "The city may be taken," Cersei said at one point, her voice rich with contempt for panic. "If it is, remember what conquerors do to women. Some of you are old enough to know. The rest may learn quickly." "No." No one answered. Sansa felt every face turn inward at once, each woman alone among many. She thought of fleeing, but there was nowhere to flee. Stone inside stone, inside stone. That was the genius of castles. They kept the enemy out until they kept everyone else in. Then the river exploded. The sound was less a noise than a blow. a thing that struck the walls and shook dust from the ceiling beams. Women screamed. One fell to her knees. Another laughed hysterically until a slap silenced her. Green light flashed through the slitted windows, brief and hellish, painting every face corpse pale and monstrous in turn. Wildfire, someone whispered. Sansa did not know the word but understood the horror in it. Another roar followed, then another, and the city itself seemed to recoil. Far below, Davos saw the river become an open wound of green flame. Ships vanished in brightness so sudden it erased shape. Men who had rowed beside him an instant before were silhouettes wrapped in living fire. Then, nothing. Heat struck his face as if a giant hand had reached from the bay to strike him. The smell was beyond pitch, or flesh, or burning wood. Some alchemist's nightmare-made air. He had a moment to think Eddard Stark was right before the world became water and fire together. At the hold-fast doors, Sandor Clegane appeared like a vision torn out of a fever. Blood streaked his mail. His burned face shone wet in the torchlight. More terrible than the blood or the scars was the naked fear in him. Fire had found the kennel master's hound at last. "Little bird," he said to Sansa, and there was no mockery in it now. "You want to live?" Cersei looked up sharply, wine-dark mouth curling. "Take your fear elsewhere, dog." Sandor ignored her. He had reached the edge beyond obedience. "The city's breaking," he said to Sansa. "If you stay here, you belong to whoever comes through that door next. Maybe Stannis, maybe lions, makes no odds to me. Come now, or don't." Sansa stared at him. Once, long ago and in another lifetime, she would have recoiled from the ugliness of him. Now she saw only a man flayed open by terror and honesty. Around them, the noblewomen had begun to cry aloud as the sounds outside grew nearer. Clashing steel, distant screams, the thud of something heavy striking gates. Cersei laughed softly. "Run then, every cur to his ditch." Sandor stepped closer. "Choose?" Sansa thought of her father saying courage was a quieter thing than songs made it. She thought of Arya vanishing through city streets. She thought, with a shock, that if she died here, she would die between walls built by liars. That seemed unbearable. "Yes," she said. They went through a servant's door while the queen still laughed. Perhaps Cersei believed the city secure. Perhaps she preferred not to spend command on saving one girl from whatever destiny the gods had written for highborn daughters. Sandor knew the keep's back ways as hounds know kennels. He dragged Sansa through passages narrow as coffins, downstairs slick with old damp, across a cellar where mice fled the tremor of the walls. Once she heard a man cry out just around a turn and Sandor shoved her behind him. There was a grunt, a wet sound, then silence. He never broke stride. They emerged not to freedom but to the city in panic. Men ran with buckets. Others ran the opposite way with plunder already bundled in cloth. The sky over the river was striped green and black. Ash fell like foul snow. Sandor seized a stable boy by the collar, flung him aside and took the boy's horse for Sansa while mounting another himself. "Hold on and don't scream," he said. They burst into streets choked with smoke. Twice they turned back from lanes blocked by fighting. Once Sansa saw a man she thought might be a gold cloak burning where he ran, arms thrown up to shield his face from a flame that clung to him like a second skin. She made no sound. Sound seemed too small for such terror. By nightfall, they had cleared the city through a postern left unwatched in the confusion, riding northward while behind them the battle turned and turned again upon the tide of men, arriving too late for the dying and just in time for the victory. Stannis lost the city that day to wildfire, to Chain, to Tyrion's cunning, and to Tywin's timely arrival with the rose banners of Highgarden at his back. Kings were often undone by timing and called it treachery. Davos washed ashore broken but alive. Stannis escaped with a remnant. The bay burned long into the night. Sandor rode Sansa hard for 3 days, speaking little, drinking when he found it, sleeping only in snatches. She obeyed because there was nothing else to do. On the second night, he offered her a strip of dried meat and said, Without looking at her, your father lives still, if half the roads don't lie. I know. Good. He drank from a skin. Then maybe there's one clean thing left in the world to ride toward. On the fourth day, near a ruined sept where crows fed among broken roof beams, riders appeared on a ridge ahead. Their cloaks were travel-stained, their spears lowered as one. For one blind, impossible moment, Sansa thought they were lions, and every choice since the keep had led her back into the same cage. Then the banner unfurled in the wind. Gray direwolf on white. She made a sound then, small and torn from very far inside her. The lead rider spurred forward, staring as if at a ghost. Sandor's hand went to his sword hilt, then fell away. "Take her," he said. The Northman who caught Sansa's reins was Sir Helman Tallheart. He dismounted before speaking, as though courtesy might prove she was not an illusion. "Lady Sansa," he said hoarsely. She could not answer. She was crying too hard for words. Sandor turned his horse while the Northman stared at him, uncertain whether to thank, kill, or question. In the end, none did. He had delivered a daughter homeward through fire. Even the righteous lacked forms for that. Sansa found her voice enough to call after him. "Will you not come?" He looked back only once, scarred face unreadable in the late sun. "I've had my fill of kings and castles, little bird." Then he rode away into the trees and was gone. When Sansa came back to Riverrun, the castle changed around her as if some long-held breath had finally been released. Catelyn met her in the yard and forgot dignity so completely that even the servants looked away. She pulled her daughter from the saddle and held her with a ferocity born of too many nights imagining far worse reunions. Arya hung back at first, uncertain in a way she had never been before, as if Sansa's silks and thinness and haunted courtesy had made her a stranger. Then Sansa saw her, and all such distance fell away. She went to her knees in the mud and opened her arms. Arya flew into them. Ned came last because he could not trust his legs. He had faced swords, councils, the cold contempt of kings, and the guilt of surviving when better men died. None of it had unmanned him like the sight of his elder daughter stepping out of a soldier's cloak with road dust on her hem, and the last fragile shards of childhood still clinging to her gaze. Sansa. She turned. For an instant, he saw all the girl she had been, the one who had begged for songs and lemon cakes and Southron stories, the one he had brought into the lion's den because he had believed honor alone could master wickedness. Then she crossed the yard and buried her face in his chest, and whatever she had become in the city melted into grief. "I tried to be brave," she whispered. "You were." His hand shook in her hair. "My sweet girl, you were." That night the family ate together in Lord Hoster's solar with the shutters barred against the wind. Sansa held her cup carefully with both hands, as if expecting someone to snatch it away. Arya talked enough for 3 sisters, eager to fill every silence that looked too much like pain. Robb watched Sansa with a strange gentleness, seeing perhaps for the first time what captivity did even when it left no mark a maester could dress. Catelyn could not stop touching one daughter or the other, as if still counting them by hand. Later, when the girls had gone to bed and the candles burned lower, Sansa told the full tale. Cersei's contempt, Joffrey's cruelties, the holdfast, the hound and the fire. She spoke calmly until she reached the moment of green light over the river. Then her voice broke and would not mend for several breaths. Ned listened without interruption. There were crimes beyond punishment, he thought. Joffrey's soul would have needed remaking from the root. No sentence of man could manage that. Jaime Lannister heard of Sansa's return before dawn. News traveled through castles the way damp moved through stone. When Ned went to see him that morning in the tower room where he was kept under guard, the Kingslayer was sitting by the window with one ankle chained to an iron ring and his pride, amazingly, still loose. "My sister has lost her little wolf, then," Jaime said. "She will be inconsolable. She has lost her hold on my house." Jaime shrugged. "You think that matters to Cersei? The woman keeps grudges the way misers keep gold. If she cannot spend one daughter against you, she will seek another coin. My daughters are not coins. To that, Jaime gave him a long, unreadable look. "No," he said at last. "Not to you." Outside, the war shifted again. Tywin sat triumphant in King's Landing with the Tyrells newly bound to him, but triumph was not peace. The North remained united. Riverrun stood. Jaime was captive. Stannis lived. The Ironborn were a threat in the west, yet Winterfell still flew Stark colors and Roderick Castle still held the castle with men enough to answer raiders. Bran and Rickon were safe. All the disasters that had cascaded from one execution in another world had not found purchase here. That did not make the days easy. It merely made them survivable. Treasons, however, did not cease because one family had been spared its worst grief. The first hint came in the form of a captured rider near Harrenhal, carrying a letter sewn into the lining of his glove. The seal had been cut away, but the script was neat, spare, and cold. It spoke in careful phrases of advantage, of the weakening of wolves, of honors to be granted to those who knew how to stand aside at the right hour. It mentioned the Dreadfort. It mentioned the crossing. It did not name Lord Tywin, which was as good as naming him. Ned read it alone first and felt no surprise at all. Roose Bolton had always seemed to him like a man wearing skin, only because the law required it. He did not arrest Bolton publicly. That would have driven uncertain men into fear and fear into rebellion. Instead, he called a council, praised Bolton's discipline, then reassigned his levies piecemeal to commands where loyalty ran warmer, and watched the Pale Lord's expressionless face for the first crack. None came. Roose inclined his head and gave up men the way another man might surrender cups at supper. It was enough. A knife taken from a table need not be denounced to everyone in the room. Walder Frey required a different handling. The old lord smelled change in the wind and had begun, Ned suspected, to consider which side might leave him better paid. The surest answer was the one promised from the first: keep faith before faith had to be tested. So when winter's first true chill touched the riverbanks, Robb Stark rode once more to the Twins, not with army at his back, but with kin, banners, and the grim resolve of a man choosing duty while still young enough to resent it. The bride was Rosalind Frey, soft-voiced and trembling, with more kindness in her than the house that bred her deserved. Robb was courteous and grave. Sansa kissed him on the cheek before the ceremony. Arya told him marriage seemed a poor reward for victory. He laughed despite himself. Ned watched the vows beneath Frey arches, and remembered his own wedding in Riverrun. Hasty and honorable and born of war. Love, if it came to Robb, might come later. If it did not, duty was still a sturdy beam on which a house might stand. The feast afterward was long, loud, and uneasy for reasons none spoke. Men who had once died at Walder Frey's board in another shape of history now drank there and lived. Greyjohn roared for more ale. Edmure flirted scandalously with two cousins at once. Rosalind blushed whenever Robb looked her way, which was not often but was kindly enough when it happened. Walder counted each courtesy as if tallying coin. Roose Bolton attended and smiled no more than usual. That was to say, not at all. Late in the feast, a raven arrived for Ned bearing black wax from Castle Black. Maester Vyman broke the seal and read, then read again as if hoping the words might change with repetition. "My lord," he said quietly, "it is from the Night's Watch." Ned took the parchment. Lord Commander Mormont wrote of missing rangers, dead men stirring in the woods, and wildlings massing in unheard-of numbers beneath a king beyond the wall. The music in the hall went on. Cups clinked. Men laughed. Rosalind Frey lowered her eyes beneath her bridal veil. Ned felt the room tilt, not with wine, but with recognition. South of the neck, they fought for crowns and vengeance and names. North of the wall, something older was moving, indifferent to all of it. When he looked up, Robb was watching him across the feast. "What is it?" his son asked. Ned folded the letter carefully. "The true war," he said. Dragonstone smelled of salt, smoke, and old pride. Ned had never liked the place. It seemed built not by men who wished to dwell, but by conquerors, who wished to remind stone that they had beaten it into shape. The halls were black and severe. Carved dragons stared from pillars with blank, arrogant eyes. Seawind found every crack and made the torches gutter. Davos Seaworth met him on the strand below the castle, one hand missing to the first knuckle as ever, his face weathered harder by recent fire. He bowed awkwardly, not for lack of courtesy, but because old wounds pulled at him. Lord Stark, Sir Davos, it's a strange day that brings us together here. Strange days have grown common. Davos glanced toward the heights where Dragonstone loomed against a bruised sky. His Grace will see you at once. He's had little patience for anything since Blackwater. Did he have much before? Davos' mouth twitched despite himself. Not enough to notice a loss. They climbed through echoing halls to the chamber of the painted table. Stannis stood alone beside the map of Westeros, hands braced upon the carved wood as if he meant to hold the whole realm still by force. He wore no crown. The plainness of that was somehow more regal than Joffrey's gilded peacockery had ever been. At the room's edge, Melisandre watched from the red glow of a brazier, her face unreadable. For a moment, neither man spoke. They had known one another in Robert's orbit, not as friends but as men who respected a hardness in the other that Robert had laughed at and relied upon by turns. At last, Ned sank to one knee. "Your Grace," Stannis exhaled slowly. "You survived when I had given you up for dead. Rise, Lord Stark. I have few enough men left to kneel honestly." Ned rose. "I come to offer what I should have offered sooner. The allegiance of my house to the rightful king, provided that right remains joined to justice." One of Stannis' brows moved the breadth of a dagger's edge. "A condition? A truth?" The king's mouth hardened. "Speak it. The North and the Riverlands bleed for your claim because law matters or nothing does. They will not burn their godswoods for a red priestess. They will not see children or innocents put to the fire for prophecy. They will have justice done on those who murdered, lied, and usurped. If I ask them to hold, it will be for a realm worth holding." "Nobe." Silence followed. The wind moaned in some distant passage. Davos stood very still. Melisandre's red gaze seemed to warm rather than blink. At length Stannis said, "You ask much. I ask what keeps men from becoming the monsters they fight." "Do they?" Stannis' eyes flicked once sharply, toward the woman in red before returning to Ned. "The realm has made monsters well enough without my aid. That is why it needs a king, not an excuse." For one breath, Ned thought he had gone too far. Then Davos let out a sound that might almost have been a strangled laugh, and Stannis' mouth, against all custom, twitched. "Robert should have left me more such men," he said. "Very well. Your godswoods may stand. My justice will fall where law demands it. As for innocence..." He glanced again at Melisandre, who only smiled faintly. "I have no fondness for wasting what I mean to rule." Ned accepted that for what it was. Not comfort, but ground solid enough to stand on. He drew Lord Commander Mormont's letter from his cloak and laid it on the painted wall at the table's northern edge. "Your Grace," he said, "if you would be king, save your kingdom." Stannis read the letter in grim silence. Mance Raider, thousands of wildlings, missing rangers, corpses that walked. By the time he reached the end, the candles had burned lower, and the sea had turned dark beyond the windows. "The wall," Stannis said, "while the Iron Throne sits beneath a lion and a rose." "The Iron Throne can wait one season longer," Ned replied. "The dead cannot." Melisandre moved then, red skirts whispering over stone. "There is power in the north," she said. "A darkness and a fire both. The battle there is written." Davos looked miserable. Stannis looked thoughtful in the way a flint might look thoughtful if one asked it to contemplate tinder. "I lost a kingdom on the Blackwater," he said. "If I sail north, they will say I flee." "Let them," Ned said. "Better they say you fled south on flatteries than that you ignored the wall and let the realm die while you counted crowns." Stannis' jaw tightened. pride warred with duty in him. Ned knew that war. He had lived inside it half his life. At last, the king gave a single curt nod. "I will answer the watch. Not for your sake, Stark. For the realm." "Nay." Of course. Davos' relief showed plain. He had the look of a man who had watched a house fire veer from the nursery. They spoke long into the storm-lit evening after that. Of supply ships, White Harbor, the roads through the Neck, the need to leave enough men in the south that Tywin dared not strip the Riverlands bare. Robb would hold Riverrun with Brynden Tully and a hard ring of Northmen and river lords around him. Catelyn would remain where her daughters were safest. The Frey marriage had steadied one bridge. Roose Bolton had been unmade as a threat before he could ripen. Theon Greyjoy, still in Stark keeping, would serve as reminder to Pike that the North watched the sea as well as the land. When at last the practical matters were exhausted, Ned stood by a narrow window looking east over a black and heaving sea. Snow had begun to mix with the rain, though the year had not yet turned properly. Winter was testing the world with one cold hand. Davos came to stand beside him. "You believe the tales, then?" "I believe too many rangers are missing," Ned said. "I believe old men at the wall do not scare easily, and I believe I have spent too much of my life watching lords murder each other over chairs, while dangers with no herald and no banner gather unseen." Davos nodded. "That's reason enough for me." Before dawn, Ned wrote to Catelyn. He told her what he had agreed and what he must now do. He told her that Sansa slept more peacefully, and Arya still climbed where she should not. He told her Robb was no longer a boy, whether either of them liked it. He did not tell her that the thought of going north filled him with a strange, solemn peace, as if all the false roads of the south were finally falling away, and the true one, the hard one, the one made of oath and snow and old promise, lay plain before him at last. When the letter was sealed, he sat with it a while before summoning the raven. Outside, the storm thickened. Dragonstone's carved beasts crouched beneath sleet like patient judges. Winter announced itself at White Harbor in the color of the sky. The sea had gone leaden, the gulls flew low, and every man in the harbor moved with the hurried economy of one who knows there is work still to be done before cold begins taking its tithe in earnest. From White Harbor, Ned rode first to Winterfell. He had not meant to stop. Duty tugged him northward with an urgency that made every delay feel suspect. But a man does not pass his own gates after nearly losing all without crossing that threshold at least once. So he came home to find the castle changed and unchanged as only old homes can be. The walls stood. The hot springs breathed steam into the crisp air. The wolves were larger. The children were older. Bran met him in the great hall in a carved chair borne by Hodor, all thin hands and watchful eyes. There was something in the boy now that had not been there before the fall, something old and far away, as if part of him listened always for another voice carried on the roots beneath the world. "Father," Bran said, and smiled. Ned knelt before the chair and took his son's hand. It was colder than he expected. Rickon came barreling in an instant later with Shaggy Dog at his heels and nearly knocked them both sideways. For a little while there was no war, no king, no wall, no dead in the woods. Only father counting sons and thanking gods he scarcely knew how to pray to anymore. The peace did not last. Peace never did. Ravens waited. Riders waited. Stannis ships were already making for Eastwatch, and the king himself had gone ahead with those men he could move fastest. Ned remained only 2 nights in Winterfell. On the second, beneath the heart tree, Bran looked up at him with those strange grave eyes and said, "You have to go farther north than you think." Ned felt the old weirwood face watching from above the pool, red eyes knowing more than mercy allowed. That seems likely." Bran touched the bark with thin fingers. "The trees, remember." It was not a child's thing to say. Ned kissed his brow and did not ask questions he feared to hear answered. The road to the wall was iron hard with cold by the time he reached it. Snow worked in flurries across the King's Road and gathered in the hollows of mail. Men wrapped cloaks tighter and spoke less. At every village along the way, Folks stared at the passing banners of Stag and Direwolf together and wondered what such company meant. Let them wonder, Ned thought. Better wonder than complacency. Castle Black appeared at last like a scratch of dark marks against an impossible whiteness. The wall rose above it, pale blue and vast and indifferent, not a work of men so much as an argument against them. Every time Ned saw it, he understood anew why the Watch's vows stripped titles bare. Under that height, lord and poacher alike looked equally small. The brothers on the yard froze when he rode in. Some gaped openly. Others crossed themselves or muttered to one another. The dead returning had become a habit in the realm of late. That did not make them easier to greet. Jon Snow came down the steps of the Lord Commander's tower at a run, and then slowed so abruptly it seemed his body had forgotten what it wanted. He wore black wool and leather, his face leaner than when Ned had last seen him at Winterfell, his eyes older. Ghost paced beside him, white as the snow and silent as judgment. Father? There it was again, that word in a son's mouth. And again it pierced him. Ned dismounted before the horse had fully halted. For one dangerous instant he was not Lord, not Warden, not Stannis' ally, only a man who had feared for a boy he loved while never giving him the full name of that love. He took Jon by the shoulders. "You've grown." Jon gave a breathless, disbelieving laugh that was half a sob. "I thought you dead." "So did I, once or twice." They embraced awkwardly in their armor, the way men do when feeling threatens to make boys of them again. Around them, black brothers pretended not to stare. Samwell Tarly openly cried. Dolorous Ed looked as if he had expected no less from a world determined to worsen every ordinary grief with an extraordinary surprise. There was no time to linger in reunion. Mance Rayder's host was near, camped in its sprawling, ragged thousands beyond the wall's shadow. And Stannis had arrived hours before with horse and fire, and the fury of a king who preferred enemies he could ride at to councils he could not master. The wildling army had not expected mailed knights crashing into its flank from the south while black brothers held the wall above. Surprise alone won half the battle. The rest was won by discipline, steel, and the fact that free folk, for all their courage, were not built to stand against armored cavalry in open ground. Ned took command of a reserve beneath the wall while Stannis drove the charge. Jon, who knew the enemy and pitied them, rode between commanders with messages and grim counsel. The battle was less glorious than singers would one day insist. Men slipped in blood beneath snow. Arrows vanished into gray. Giants bellowed like falling trees. One mammoth turned and plowed through its own ranks in panic. The wall looked down on all of it without approval. By dusk, Mance's host was broken and scattered, its king taken. Tormund Giantsbane vanished with a remnant into the haunted forest. The dead on the field froze where they lay. That night, the wall groaned softly in the cold, as if remembering all the winters it had endured before these men were born. Fires burned in Castle Black's yards. The wounded cried out for maesters and broth. Stannis occupied the Lord Commander's rooms, with the same air of irritated necessity he wore toward everything. Melisandre moved among shadows and flame, seeing visions where other people saw only smoke. Davos apologized to everyone he bumped into and very nearly fell asleep standing. Ned found Jon at last upon the top of the wall, looking north where darkness had swallowed the edges of the world. Snow blew past them in fine white streamers. Far below, the campfires of captives and victors marked the earth in orange pinpricks. "You chose this," Ned said, standing beside him. "I did." Jon's voice was quiet. "Sometimes I thought I chose poorly. And now?" Jon looked out across the frozen forest. "Now I think all the rest may have chosen poorly instead." The answer was so grave, so nearly old in its sorrow, that Ned felt both pride and pain. He had wanted a simpler fate for the boy. The realm had refused him that. "I was proud of you before I came," Ned said. "I am more so now." Jon swallowed. When I heard of King's Landing, I wanted to ride south, to Robb, to you. I know. I would have broken my vows. Perhaps. Ned rested a gloved hand upon the icy parapet. And perhaps the realm would be poorer for it. There are many kinds of courage, Jon. Staying is one of them. For a long moment there was only wind. Then Jon said, "There are things I've wondered all my life." Ned's heart tightened once hard. "Promise me, Lyanna." The words came back from a room long turned to memory. From blood on a bed and roses already dying. He had lived by that promise through rebellion, marriage, fatherhood, and disgrace. He had nearly died by it too. "I know," he said. Jon turned to him, searching his face. Snow caught in his dark hair. He looked so young in that instant that Ned saw every year he had not been allowed to claim him openly. Then the moment passed and the wall stood between them and all confessions like a thing built for silence. "When this is done," Ned said, choosing each word with the care of a man crossing ice he knows may crack. "When the realm is safer than it is tonight, there are truths I owe you. More than one." Jon held his gaze a long while. Whatever he read there was enough, for now. He nodded once. Below them a horn sounded from the yard. Once, twice, then a third time, long and low. Not in warning, but in the bleak, practical language of the watch, calling men to a task that would not wait until dawn. Somewhere beyond the firelight a corpse had been found moving, or a ranger had staggered in, or winter had simply demanded one more proof that the wall had not been raised for vanity. Ned looked south then, though the south was hidden by night and distance and storm. There sat Tywin Lannister in borrowed peace. There brooded Cersei over losses she would never forgive. There still played the game that had nearly taken everything from him. But here, beneath ice and stars, that game seemed suddenly what it had always been. A lesser madness pretending to be the whole world. He had escaped the axe in King's Landing. He had saved what children he could, bent the knee where law required, and ridden at last to the far edge of the map where oaths ceased to be ornaments and became shelter. The wind off the haunted forest cut through wool and leather, through pride and grief alike, leaving only the hard core of what mattered. Beside him, Jon stood black-cloaked and resolute, a son in everything but name, and perhaps more than name besides. Below them, Stannis Baratheon held the wall for a throne he had not won. Beyond them, the dark waited with ancient patience. Ned Stark laid his hand on the ice, felt its implacable cold, and understood at last that the gods had not spared him for vengeance. They had spared him for winter.